The night I left home wasn't dramatic. No slammed doors. No screaming match that ended with someone in tears. Just a single sentence that changed everything. "You won't be missed," my father said, not even looking up from his phone. I stood near the doorway with a small suitcase at my feet, waiting for anyone to say something different. My mother folded laundry on the couch, like this was just another ordinary evening. My younger brother had his headphones on, completely tuned out. It felt like I was invisible, like my existence had already been erased. I hadn't planned on leaving that night. I only wanted space. I'd said I was thinking about moving out, trying to build something of my own, but to them, it sounded like betrayal. "You think you're special," my mother had added earlier. "The world won't care about you the way we do." That sentence hurt more than the first. Because the truth was, they didn't care much at all. Growing up, I was always the extra child. Not the favorite. Not the successful one. Not the problem child, either, just the one everyone expected to quietly survive on their own. If something went wrong in the house, it was somehow my fault. If something went right, it belonged to someone else. I paid my share. I followed the rules. I stayed quiet. And still, I was treated like a burden. When I picked up my suitcase, my father finally looked at me. "Don't come crawling back when it doesn't work out." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. Walking out of that house felt like stepping into cold air after being underwater for too long. It hurt, but I could breathe. The first few months were brutal. I slept on a mattress on the floor of a tiny rented room. I worked 2 jobs, one during the day, one late at night. Some days, I ate instant noodles. Other days, I skipped meals completely. I didn't tell anyone how hard it was. Pride and pain don't mix well. And through all of it, my parents didn't call. No, "Are you okay?" No, "Do you need help?" Not even a birthday message. It confirmed what they'd said. I wasn't missed. Or so I thought. Years passed. Slowly, quietly, my life changed. I learned skills. I saved money. I failed, recovered, and failed again. I built a version of myself they had never believed in. And just when I was finally at peace with being forgotten, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was different, soft, careful. "We need to talk," she said. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, because I could already tell. This wasn't a call to check on me. It was a call because they needed something. And that's when everything truly began to change. Why did my parents suddenly reach out after years of silence, and what secret were they hiding that made them beg me to come back? I didn't answer my mother's call right away. I let the phone ring until it stopped. Then sat there staring at the screen like it might explain why she was calling after all these years. My last message from her was nearly 3 years old, a short reply that said, "You made your choice." That was it. No follow-up, no concern. So why now? Curiosity won. I called her back. She answered immediately, like she'd been holding the phone the entire time. "Thank God," she said, exhaling loudly. "I was worried you wouldn't respond." That alone told me something was wrong. Her voice sounded thinner, weaker somehow. Gone was the sharp edge she used to speak with, the confidence that made everyone else feel small. Instead, she sounded careful. "How have you been?" she asked. It was such a strange question that I almost laughed. Years ago, I would have given anything to hear it. Now it felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. "I'm fine," I replied. "What do you need?" There was a pause. "We're not asking for money," she said quickly, which immediately made my stomach tighten. "I didn't say you were." Another pause, longer this time. Then she said, "Your father's health hasn't been good." I felt a flicker of concern, but I didn't let it show. My father had always been fine whenever it suited him, and sick whenever responsibility came knocking. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, "The house feels empty without you." That almost made me laugh, for real. Empty. After telling me I wouldn't be missed. She went on, explaining how things had been hard lately. Bills piling up. Stress. Family tension. She mentioned my brother, how he'd moved out suddenly, leaving them to manage everything on their own. That's when it clicked. I hadn't been missed as a person. I had been missed in a role. For years, I'd been the quiet fixer, the one who handled paperwork, errands, late-night problems, and emotional cleanup. I didn't realize it back then, but when I left, I took more than my suitcase, took their safety net. "Your father keeps asking about you," my mother added softly. "He says things weren't the same after you left." I remembered his words clearly. "Don't come crawling back." Funny how time rewrites memories. She asked if I could come visit. "Just for a few days," she said. It would mean a lot. I told her I'd think about it. After hanging up, I sat there in silence, replaying the conversation over and over. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt uneasy. Because if they were reaching out now after years of ignoring MIT, meant something serious was happening. And I wasn't sure if going back would heal old wounds, or rip them wide open. When I finally returned home, I realized my parents had told me the full truth, and what I discovered inside that house shocked me. I almost turned around before knocking on the door. The house looked smaller than I remembered, like it had shrunk in my absence. The paint was peeling near the windows. The garden my mother used to obsess over was overgrown, weeds tangled where flowers once bloomed. It didn't look like a home that had been fine. When my mother opened the door, she froze. For a second, we just stared at each other. She looked older, much older. Her hair had more gray than black now, and the lines on her face seemed deeper, heavier. But what caught my attention most was her expression. Not relief, not happiness, guilt. "You came," she whispered, stepping aside to let me in. Inside, everything felt familiar and wrong at the same time. The same couch. The same framed family photos on the wall. Except none of them had been updated. I wasn't in any of the newer ones. It was like time had stopped the moment I left. My father was sitting in his old chair, staring at the TV without really watching it. When he noticed me, his face hardened for a moment, then softened. "You look well," he said. So did they. But something was off. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Every sentence felt carefully chosen, like we were all afraid to say the wrong thing and trigger an explosion. My mother kept asking if I was eating enough. My father kept clearing his throat like he wanted to say something, but couldn't. Finally, I asked the question they were avoiding. "What's really going on?" My mother and father exchanged a look. The kind that says you tell them without words. My father sighed. "We're thinking of selling the house." That surprised me, but not for the reason they expected. "And?" I asked. He shifted uncomfortably. "The bills have gotten difficult. Property tax, maintenance, medical expenses." There it was. I looked around the room again and suddenly saw everything clearly. The unpaid mail was stacked on the counter. The broken cabinet door no one had fixed. The quiet tension hanging in the air. "You want me to help?" I said. My mother's eyes filled with tears immediately. We wouldn't ask if we had another choice. But that wasn't entirely true. I learned later that night through bits of conversation they didn't think I noticed that my brother had refused to help. He'd told them he had his own life now. That the responsibility wasn't his. The same thing I'd been criticized for doing. That realization hurt more than their financial problems, because it proved something I'd always suspected. They didn't want me back. They wanted what I provided. As I lay in my old room that night, staring at the familiar ceiling, I wondered if coming back had been a mistake. Because the more time I spent there, the more I realized they still saw me the same way. The next morning, a single conversation exposed the real reason my parents wanted me back, and it changed how I saw them forever. The conversation happened over breakfast. My mother was scrambling eggs, the same way she always had: too much oil, not enough seasoning. My father sat at the table, flipping through unopened mail, like it was a deck of cards. The TV was on, but muted. It felt normal, and that's what made it dangerous. "You could move back in," my mother said suddenly, not looking at me. "At least for a while." I froze. "Move back," I repeated. She nodded quickly, like she'd been rehearsing this line for days. "It would help everyone. You'd save money. We'd have support. It just makes sense." Support. That word echoed in my head. "For how long?" I asked. She hesitated. "We'll see." That was my cue. "I didn't come here to move back," I said calmly. "You told me I wouldn't be missed, remember?" My father slammed a letter onto the table. "That was years ago." "Exactly," I replied. "Years you didn't call." Silence fell hard. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice breaking. "We didn't think you'd struggle alone." I almost laughed. "You didn't think about me at all." That's when the truth finally spilled out. My father admitted he'd lost a large portion of his retirement savings due to a bad decision. Medical bills followed. Then the house repairs. Everything stacked up faster than they could manage. They'd asked my brother for help first. He said no. "He told us you were doing well," my mother said quietly. "That you were stable, independent. So they called me. Not because they believed in me. Because they needed me." "I won't live here," I said firmly. "And I won't fix everything." My mother started crying. Real tears this time. We're your parents. Isn't family supposed to help? I took a deep breath. Family doesn't tell you you'll never be missed. That landed. My father looked away. For the first time, he looked ashamed. I can help in limited ways, I continued. Advice, planning, but not my life, not my freedom. They weren't prepared for that. They expected guilt, obedience, the old version of me. Instead, they got boundaries. That afternoon, I packed my bag again. Not to leave permanently, but to make a point. As I zipped it closed, my mother stood in the doorway, her voice small. If you go now, you might not come back. I met her eyes. That's a risk you took years ago. And for the first time in my life, I walked out without guilt. But walking away didn't end the story because what my parents did next shocked everyone, including me. I expected anger after I left. What I didn't expect was silence. Days passed. Then weeks. No calls. No messages. No dramatic apologies, or desperate pleas. It felt familiar, like the old pattern trying to reassert itself. Ignore the problem and hope it fixes itself. But something had changed. This time, I wasn't waiting. A month later, my father called, not my mother, him. His voice sounded tired, stripped of authority. We might need your help, he said, carefully choosing each word. I already offered help, I replied. Just not control. He sighed. Things are worse than we thought. That was when I learned the full picture. The house sale had fallen through. My father's health issues required ongoing treatment. Creditors were calling daily. And the relatives who used to praise them had suddenly become unavailable. They were running out of options. I can help you organize things, I said. Budgeting, selling what you don't need, finding assistance programs. There was a long pause, and, moving back. No. Another pause, heavier this time. Then we accept your terms, he said quietly. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Accept your terms. All my life, I'd been told what my terms were. Stay quiet. Be grateful. Don't complain. Don't leave. Now, the balance had shifted. I helped them remotely. Phone calls, spreadsheets, hard conversations they'd been avoiding for years. I guided them through downsizing and paperwork, but I stayed in my own home, in my own life. My mother struggled the most. You used to handle these things so icily, she said once, almost accusingly. I learned because I had to, I replied. Not because it was easy. Slowly, they began to change. My father apologized one evening, no excuses, no justifications, just a quiet, honest apology. My mother followed later, admitting she'd underestimated me and taken my presence for granted. It didn't erase the past. But it acknowledged it, and then, something unexpected happened. They stopped asking me to come back. Instead, they started asking how I was doing. Not out of need. Out of respect. That's when I realized something important. They weren't begging me back into the house anymore. They were trying to earn a place in my life. The final decision I made shocked my parents and, finally proved who was truly never missed at all. The invitation came quietly. No pressure. No guilt. No emotional traps disguised as concern. My mother called one evening and said, "We're having dinner this weekend. If you'd like to come, we'd love to see you." Not need. Not please, love. I sat with that word for a long time after the call ended. When I arrived, the house felt different, simpler, lighter. Some furniture was gone, sold to ease the financial strain. The clutter had been reduced, and so had the tension. My parents looked smaller, somehow not weaker, but more human. Dinner wasn't perfect. There were awkward pauses and half-finished sentences. But there was also listening. Real listening. My father asked about my work and didn't interrupt. My mother didn't criticize my choices or suggest how I should be living instead. At one point, my father said something that caught me completely off guard. "We used to think you needed us more than we needed you," he admitted. Turns out, we were wrong. That was the moment everything settled. Not because it healed the past but because it finally named it. I realized then that being missed isn't about absence, it's about value. And for a long time, my value had been invisible because I was always there, always fixing, always adapting. When I left, they didn't miss me. They missed the convenience. But losing that convenience forced them to see the person behind it. I didn't move back in. I didn't cut them off either. I chose something in between, something healthier. We rebuilt our relationship slowly, on new terms. Clear boundaries. Honest conversations. Mutual effort. Not an obligation. And here's the truth I wish I'd known years ago. If someone tells you that you'll never be missed, they're often revealing how much they rely on you without appreciating you. Walking away didn't make me smaller. It showed me how big my presence had always been. Now, when I leave their house, my phone buzzes before I even reach my car. Drive safe, my mother texts, and this time, I believe she means it. Because the person they once thought would never be missed is the one they're most careful not to lose again. Thanks for watching the video, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon.